So this Q star leak from OpenAI keeps getting stranger. Here's the important thing to understand. Very little of this has any proof that substantiates that it's true. But as I'm sure you're aware, everyone is talking about it. MIT Technology Review, Reuters, I believe that's the first sort of mainstream news source that covered it. In fact, I think it's the one that broke the story. Forbes published about that mysterious AI breakthrough known as Q-Star by OpenAI that allegedly attains true AI or is on the path towards artificial general intelligence. Business Insider, The Information, which tends to publish a lot of stuff about OpenAI and about AI in general. You have Barron's, VentureBeat, and just about everyone else. And so for everyone that's just catching up, basically, OpenAI had this insane weekend where they fired Sam Altman. No one knew what was happening. Everybody seemed to be lying. Nobody really could say anything for certain. There were some theories, but the whole thing was kind of strange. It seems that a lot of powerful people, including from venture capitalists, Microsoft, and even some government people from the Justice Department, came in to kind of manage the situation. Sam Altman is reinstated. Everything seems to be back to normal. But right around this time, someone leaks a document about something called Q-Star. Seems to be that there was some sort of an internal mail that was talking about Q-Star sent by Mira Murati. Since then, an OpenAI spokesperson said that no, that email didn't have to do with any projects at OpenAI. That was just some news story we were talking about. But then this document was supposedly leaked from OpenAI talking about Qualia, another name for Q-Star. My first instinct was to just dismiss it, not even talk about it. Now, Dr. Jim Fan and several other AI researchers kind of theorized about what Q-Star could be. It looks like Grok is being released on iOS. That's Elon Musk's new AI chatbot. You heard it here first, apparently. I knew it was being released, didn't know that it's right now. And so right now, it seems like there's three kind of broad categories of people believing what the heck Q-Star is. And one take is that everything is just nonsense. I'm going to put BS here. And it's important to understand that, very likely could be. A lot of this could be just complete nonsense. I'm not here to convince anybody otherwise. Then there were some researchers and other people who are theorizing that Q-Star might be kind of a new approach to developing AI that takes the concept of LLMs, large language models, the things we learned from AlphaGo, Google DeepMind's AlphaGo, potentially some synthetic data, Q-learning, A-star. So it's kind of this combination of a lot of these new breakthroughs and some not so new breakthroughs that we've had that now is creating a self-improving LLM. Andrej Karpathy in his brand new video has talked about how that could be the next stage of LLM development. Demi Sasabi's talked about how Gemini could potentially incorporate some of the learning from AlphaGo into the LLM that is Gemini. So this, I think, whether that's Q-Star or not, this is a very likely avenue down which AI development will be going. So I feel like if you think Q-Star is either BS or it's something like this, these are kind of like the sane approaches to what it could be. But then there's this other theory, this other avenue of thought, and that has to do with this leaked document. Again, we don't know if it's real. We don't know if it's not. And it kind of gets kind of crazy into the rabbit hole of what this Q-Star could be. And it seems like today there's more and more details. There's more people talking about this other kind of branch of what it could be. And this is kind of like the weird, crazy, dark branch that's a little bit more like a conspiracy. It's a little bit more like sci-fi, but there's just no real evidence that it's true. So if you enjoy speculation, if you enjoy conspiracy theories, well, I think you're going to love this video because this gets nuts. If you prefer to stick to strictly science, strictly vet information, then I'm warning you, this is not it. I promise we'll be back to our irregularly scheduled programs soon, I hope. With those disclaimers out of the way, let's dive in. Here's a compilation of Q-Star, everything that we know, everything that people are discussing so far. So there's a Twitter account called AI Breakfast. They published this link. I'm not sure where it's coming from. A lot of this has been leaked on Reddit and 4chan, which might mean that it's complete nonsense. But at the same time, the Facebook model, when that was leaked, I believe that's exactly the two main sources where that leak occurred. So this would not be the first time something of this magnitude has appeared in 4chan or Reddit before it appeared anywhere else. 4chan is an anonymous kind of board where people can anonymously post stuff. So stuff shows up there when people want to say something without anybody being able to trace it back to them. As you can imagine, that means there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of nonsense. And every once in a while, something big and something of substance. So there's a few videos about it. This one is Dave Shapiro. I've mentioned it before. So he's saying that this is the biggest thing since kind of the precursor to transformers and possibly much bigger. And AGI is definitely near. Now, he's been calling for saying that AGI is about 18 months away. And I think he made that claim earlier this year. So I don't know where we are in that timeline, but he believes that AGI is approaching and he gives his reasoning for it. And then this is, as I'm drawing this reminds me of this meme. The guy's like going crazy drawing crap on the board. So yeah, I know we're getting deep into the rabbit hole, but here's kind of like the paper that started a lot of this. We broke it down in the previous video. Basically, what it's saying is that this Q-star, or qualia as they're referring to it here, it had certain emergent abilities that were far greater than we anticipated. It was showing metacognition. In other words, it was able to kind of think about thinking and optimizing its own thoughts or its own sort of processes, its own calculations to improve them. And we've been seeing more studies recently showing that AI is beginning to teach and train and create kind of like the next evolution of AIs. The data created by models like GPT-4 is used to train new AI models called synthetic data. Orca 2 was one of the very recent papers that kind of showed this. Another paper showing that you can use AI to give feedback to AI, so reinforcement learning with AI feedback, showing that AIs can teach or improve themselves. And of course, AlphaGo, the big breakthrough was the earlier models would learn from human games and they got pretty good, but that seemed to be like a ceiling because they could only get as good as humans because they were learning from human data. However, when they engaged in self-play, kind of playing itself and generating their own games, so basically you can think of it as synthetic data generated by AI, their progress went parabolic, exponential progress. They got a lot better and it quickly became the #1 AI model for playing Go, far better than any human player. So a lot of people do believe that these ideas of AI kind of recursively building on itself, that's where we're going to see the really big progress. And by the way, that's not the conspiracy theory. That's a pretty mainstream, straightforward belief. Here's Dr. Jim Fan, AI researcher at NVIDIA, saying that something like this, now he's not talking about Q-star, he's describing more about AlphaGo and how to combine them with LLMs, but he kind of refers to the potential for this to be kind of a perpetual motion machine, where the more it plays, the more data it gets, the better it gets at playing. It's kind of like this cycle where it just keeps getting better and better. And that's what they're describing here. And in the second paragraph, they're saying how it learned how to beat these high-level advanced encryptions by showing it encrypted documents and the plain text version of those documents and training it on that data set. Eventually, it was able to break that encryption. And then it gets even worse from there. We'll come back to that in just a second. But first, let's take a look at what this document shows. So I apologize if this is a bit blurry. So one thing that it points out is this comment here. Now, what I said in a previous video was that this paper is extremely well written. And what I meant was that coming from a perspective of let's assume it's fake. Somebody's just having some fun on the internet. They published this paper, said it's from OpenAI just to maybe scare some people. Now, assuming that's the case, what's kind of strange about it is how well it's written, how accurately it's written. It mimics that certain style that you expect to see from papers like this. We've read internal papers on this channel from AI researchers that are writing from one AI researchers to another for something that is not meant for the public. It's just meant to be kind of circulated within the company or within a department. There's a very specific way that they write. It's usually very logical. It's very tight. It's very information packed. It doesn't make any wild claims. It's usually very emotionally stable, you could say. It doesn't use a lot of hyperbole. It's just a way of writing that is very high density information packed in there. Also, since they're talking to other AI researchers, they'll use certain words and terminology and stuff like that without explaining what it is because they assume the other person knows. Again, it's not for sort of outside consumption, right? It's like if you and I had a conversation about a specific thing and then I write you an email about that thing, I'm not going to re-explain what that thing is. I'll be just like, because we've been talking about it. Here's just the new thing that I found out about this thing. So that's one thing that I definitely noticed about how it's written. But here's another anonymous poster because it's 4chan, so everybody's anonymous. So here's what it's saying. This letter is strangely technically accurate and alarming. By the way, this green text and referring to each other as anon. If you ever find that somewhere else, that's kind of the 4chan way of speaking. It's like its own thing, just FYI. It's a language of its own. And so he's quoting here for the letter, selects optimal action selection policies and deep Q networks exhibiting metacognition. So that means that it selects the policy rather than just the next best action, which is what Q learning consists of. So it goes beyond that. Apply this for accelerated cross-domain learning. That is, it was able to change this policy depending on the thing it was supposed to learn. That's completely new. We've seen something that's maybe a little bit similar to this with Orca 2, because the first step of Orca 2 is it tries to figure out which approach is best for solving a given particular problem. Is it just direct output? Is it thinking through it step by step? Is it more of a tree of thoughts approach? So here it's saying that it chooses the learning policy based on the thing that it's supposed to learn. We tell it, okay, learn how to break this code. It thinks about, okay, like let me go and learn that skill. What is the best way of learning that skill? Here's the best way of learning that skill. Then it learns that skill. Normally in Q learning, from what I've seen in the past, the human, the researcher would have to write the reward functions. They would have to write the learning policy. And we've been seeing that slowly kind of change. So for example, Eureka from NVIDIA was able to teach a robot how to twirl a pencil in their fingers, kind of in a simulation. And the way they did that is they had GPT-4 write the code, write the reward function for that. We did a video on it a while back called Eureka. So again, we've been seeing a lot of this idea that AI is now developing the next generation of AI, of robots. And then saying custom search parameters, scrambling the goal state, so it can decide on the optimal parameters for learning. So it's more meta skills and how to learn and think about things. Unsupervised learning, analyzed millions of plain text / ciphertext pairs. This is the kind of data it would process after learning how to attack crypto systems, finding patterns in it, which again, we have things like AlphaFold that is able to analyze or guess at the 3D structures of protein, which is extremely complicated. But AIs are finding ways to do that. So again, this is, the big breakthrough in that was in 2020. So a lot of this is kind of at the very edge of what we're talking about, of what we know to be existing, but it's just kind of like that next step that we didn't think we're there yet. And then saying cracking AES 192 Tau Analysis Project Tundra. So AES is Advanced Encryption Systems. Basically, it's an advanced way of encrypting data so that other people can't figure out what you're talking about or what kind of data you're transferring. Here it's saying the reference to the claim is inside the NSA's War on Internet Security by Spiegel. The NSA Tundra project investigated a potentially new technique, the Tau statistic, to determine its usefulness in codebook analysis. And this is the other thing. So they've used this Tau Project Tundra, and they said in the leaked document, here they said X informed Y. So it's two different people, we assume, right? So Bob informed Joe or whatever at NSAC. Which, a few people in the comments have speculated about this there's a few acronyms that fit this, but most people wouldn't guess off the bat what this is. And that's what I mean, that it's written as if it was to somebody else that would know exactly what we're talking about. Like it doesn't go out of its way to explain it. But apparently this is NSA Colorado. It's the NSA location that is closest to San Francisco. And that the NSA Tundra project investigated a potentially new technique, the Tau statistic, to analyze these codes. You see what I mean? Like assuming this is a fake email, it seems like a lot of thought went into this. So this is much lower than the current limits for MD5 pre-images, indicating great capability. So again, this is saying basically that this new system is able to break very advanced mathematical concepts that were we didn't know this kind of capability existed yet. Targeted unstructured pruning on itself. So it's able to cut out chunks of its own code that it doesn't need, and using a metamorphic engine to adapt the prune transformer model plus context memory, aka mutation engine. This is used for malware in certain cases. But to me, that's one thing when I was reading this. This is where I was like, okay, that's it. Because this idea of it's a novel type of a metamorphic engine, this to me seemed like it's getting a little bit more into sci-fi territory, right? Because we're saying now this AI is building its own engine. So it's building its own brain. It's improving itself. It's morphing its structure in real time to improve itself, which is what we've always expected or thought that maybe potentially eventually that's what ASI could be, advanced superintelligence. That's where everything was going. But here it sounds like this thing just popped up with this ability, according to this letter. And if Altman sat on that info, it did not inform the board, then it's not a mystery why he was fired. It would completely explain their crazy behavior, which, it kind of would explain a lot of it. It would explain all of the actions. It would explain why no one had any justification for these actions. So this is from Wall Street Journal. Some executives said they were getting questions from regulators and law enforcement entities, such as the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan, over what was happening, right? And they're saying, hey, we're going to find out one way or another what's going on. And so the board agreed to discuss the matter with their counsel, meaning with their lawyers. So the board of OpenAI that started this whole thing, attorney generals are calling them, people that, can put you in a cage for the rest of your life, right? And they're like, hey, tell me what's going on. And so the board's like, wait, let me talk to our counsel, which is smart, right? And then after a few hours, right? So after hours of deliberation with their lawyers, they come back still unwilling to provide specifics. So that sounds weird, right? Why? They fired him for lying, but they can't provide any examples of lying. So why does this letter make sense in that regard? If Sam Altman knew about this and just did not tell him, well, what this letter would mean would likely be a massive collapse of, I don't want to say of our society. That sounds very dramatic, but it would cause a lot of problems. We rely on cryptography for a lot of things. The entire economy, the world economy, our banking system really kind of relies on us being able to hide certain information. We don't want people coming in and changing certain information. Our entire money, our whole, net worth and all the companies and everything is based on or represented by these little digits out there in the internet, in the digital world. It's similar to how if you made all the locks disappear, all the doors disappear, all the walls and gates and borders, and basically anybody could go anywhere, it would get pretty difficult to keep certain things secret or keep certain property private. If anybody goes anywhere, it would be hard to prevent from people just taking whatever they wanted, from safeguarding certain things. So this is spiegel.de, so Germany, Deutschland. And again, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, good publication or bad, no commentary. I'm just reading the internet for you. Let's say that. So it's saying inside the NSA's war on internet security, so US and British intelligence agencies undertake every effort imaginable to crack all types of encrypted internet communications. The cloud, it seems, is full of holes. The good news, new Snowden documents show that some forms of encryption still cause problems for the NSA. So for the NSA, encrypted communications, or what all other internet users would call secure communications, it's a threat. In one internal training document viewed by Spiegel, an NSA employee asks, did you know that ubiquitous encryption on the internet is a major threat to NSA's ability to prosecute digital network intelligence, traffic, or defeat adversary malware? But here it's saying that the Snowden documents, so I'm sure most people recall Edward Snowden, so he leaked a lot of stuff that the government did not want leaked. The US government did not want leaked. He was a technician for the NSA, I believe. And so he was saying that strong crypto systems, so strong encryption systems, are one of the few things that you can still kind of rely on to safeguard your data. And it works so well that we all rely on it when we make phone calls, when we use our cell phone, when we log into our bank account. And so here they're saying that the Five Eyes Alliance, the secret services of Britain, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States, pursue a clear goal, removing the encryption of others on the internet whenever possible. So in 2013, the NSA had a budget of more than 10 billion. And so Project Tundra and Tau, so that's part of NSA's sort of research into how to break certain encryption technologies. Now, again, I apologize. This is out of my wheelhouse. There's a lot of this stuff that I found fascinating, but I have no idea what's true or not. I'm sure a lot of you listening probably have a much better idea into what's real, what's not. But it sounds like the NSA has a handful of in-house techniques to break some of this encryptions. There's the Tundra Project and their new technique called the Tau statistic, right? And that's the thing that they're talking about here. So using Tau analysis, Project Tundra's alleged goal. And so here it's saying, so if this is fake, then it's masterfully researched. And it's saying that whoever found this information reached out to whoever, the people mentioned in that letter were, they reached out to their local NSA, outpost, their local NSA office to let them know that, hey, we're getting close to having the tools you need. And here it's saying OpenAI does, since very recently, collaborate with DARPA on cybersecurity. It's called the DARPA AI Cyber Challenge, which this part is true. Here's whitehouse.gov, where they are talking about the AI Cyber Challenge and several top AI companies, Anthropic, Google, Microsoft, and OpenAI, who are lending their expertise and making their cutting-edge technology available for this challenge. 20 million prizes, and to improve the security of computer code. And here they're saying earlier this year, the administration announced a commitment from several AI companies to participate in an independent public evaluation of large language models. And back to this comment, they point out that people speculate that Q-Star is an LLM trained on math combined with Q-learning as a well-known reinforcement learning technique. And OpenAI has a lot of expertise in reinforcement learning, which is true. So they have, in the previous video, we looked at their collection of documents and their links to various studies about Q-learning, for example. They did have a paper about making AI do math better. And as other channels and places on the internet have covered, there's a lot behind this. There's a lot of research showing that they were moving in this direction, right? So this isn't some thing that just kind of pops out of nowhere. This seems to be, they kept pursuing this goal and stating we're moving towards this goal of improving its math abilities. Here's how we're doing it, Q learning. So all of that. And then this letter pops up. And that's what I'm saying. It's so well written. It's so, I want to say plausible. Right now, I'm not saying it's true. Because if it was true, I feel like I'd be kind of scared, number one, of making this video. Number two, I'd probably be taking all of my money, which is digital, whatever money I had, whatever digits and units I had in my bank account. And how did Joshua Bach put it? Buying a 7-year supply of ammo and groceries, which I realized that the 7-year, that was a biblical reference, I think, according to some of the people that commented on that previous video. Because what this would mean, most likely, is a collapse of a lot of things. Certainly, at the very least, the stock market collapse, because a lot of that relies on our ability to, keep information secure and protect companies against various cybersecurity threats. Most of the ownership of stuff is tracked in the digital space, right? If you're buying stocks, back in the days, you used to get a little paper saying you own the stock. Now it's just a digit. And so this is leapdragon.net. What he's saying here is this person is claiming to be somebody that's been writing software since the mid-'80s, has a lot of background in it. And here's what he's saying. Assuming these leaks are real, it explains why the OpenAI people freaked out. Because we are arriving at the point at which the machine is sufficiently more intelligent than us, enough to render the global economy, global communications, and global government effectively ended, all without any malicious intent whatsoever. And at the same time, this machine is looking around, effectively saying, I could be even smarter if you just do this thing here. And we're not even getting the sophistication of the modifications that it's proposing. And he's saying it doesn't matter if we call this AGI or not, it's meaningless. It doesn't matter if it's thinking like a human being or not. And this is what people don't fully understand. The growth curve from here goes exponentially. And scrolling back up a little bit, he's explaining the exact threats here. So there are two threats to humanity here. One, it renders pretty much all encryption meaningless. It's difficult to explain just how much we rely on encryption in today's world. Whether on wires or wireless or one kind or another, everything you send out can be heard by everyone, literally. Your signal is not aimed at one place or another. It is broadcast to the world. What makes it work is that when you make your purchase on Amazon, what makes it your purchase and not somebody else's, and what keeps all the thieves everywhere from being able to simply jot down your credit card number as they eavesdrop from where they sit, is the fact that your packets are encrypted and marked with a header, also protected with encryption that points back to you. With AES.encryption security, with that down, the entire digital economy falls apart. More importantly, decades of government secrets, healthcare data, banking data, and more are immediately exposed. No, the solution hasn't been released yet, but that shouldn't give us comfort. There's now effectively a team of superhumans over at OpenAI who can literally rule the world if they choose to do so. We're relying on their ethics. In practical terms, it's not unlike learning that a small group of humans somewhere now has access to teleportation or invisibility or invulnerability combined with immortality. You have to worry about what they might do with such capabilities. And that's not a problem that can be solved in a day or a week or a decade. So to replace AES might take decades because, breaking these codes was thought impossible until quantum computing was eventually able to do so. But it would appear that we have intelligence that has worked out rather rapidly how to do that. And along those lines, the fact that there's a solution that seems to put the bullet right in the head of the P does not equals NP presumption. If the leaks are real and accurate, this would seem to suggest P equals NP, and we're just too slow as a species to be able to come up with the nuanced or more clever solutions in human time. And so it would throw virtually all computing into chaos and would suggest that at the end of the day, there's no such thing as encryption, right? And that's what Joshua Bach is saying. So in practical sense, if Q star proved that P equals NP, that means that this AI algorithm was able to achieve a level of mathematical understanding that's far beyond anything that the humans could possibly do. It's beyond the best human mathematicians. And then this person that wrote this document, so he has some thoughts here. The person who wrote this letter, regardless of whether it's true or fake, has an expert understanding of AI research. He uses many domain knowledge terminology, but no one seems to find any sort of misuse by them, which, that paper reads like somebody that knows a lot about this stuff. I don't think this leak is fake. That's the person that wrote this document saying that. It references Project Tundra and Tau analysis, which is a topic that has been discussed very little in the internet. I don't think a troll would ever touch on such things. If it was the troll, they would have written something that is less likely to be dismissed from the first look, something that is more mimetically fit. For example, they would have written NSA Colorado instead of NSAC. I think there's a very low likelihood that there is a person with this much expert knowledge in AI research who also has a desire to troll the internet with such an elaborate prank. This seems like a part of the conversation between AI experts and teams. Hence, they have this code at the top of the email. So it's a response regarding Q and then the some number that they're talking about. So some sort of filing system or code or something like that. OpenAI basically found a way to break encryption. And so they notified the NSA about it. NSA has been interested in doing that with their project Tundra. And this would explain the turmoil at OpenAI. And this would kind of explain why the employees were so spooked that they wrote a letter to the board warning of a new AI discovery that could threaten humanity. The board members got spooked and led to take drastic actions. This would also explain why the board members still haven't explained why they fired Sam Altman. I think there's a 70% likelihood of this leak being true. If it is true, this means all information systems and financial systems, including cryptocurrency, can now be compromised. I think this warrants a deeper, more extensive investigation of this leak in the self-interest of everyone. So it's similar to some of the stuff that we were saying. It's hard for me to believe everything this is saying, but from a perspective of this being faked, it's done just incredibly well. All the little details, all the little research, all the little terminology, how it's written, like everything about it seems perfectly crafted that it makes sense from, like the technology perspective and connects to a lot of this other stuff. It also explains and neatly wraps up exactly what happened at OpenAI. It explains the statements that Sam Altman has made about being in the room where we sort of push the veil of ignorance forward, or back rather, and then the frontier of progress forward. However he phrased that, it seemed like there was a big discovery made. One of 4 in OpenAI's history. And that's why that Jimmy Apples guy that posts a lot of leaks about OpenAI, that's why he kept saying like 4 Pete, like repeating 4 times. He kept posting stuff saying 4 Pete. And then in a recent interview with Ilya, he's saying, are you sure GPT-4 can't do these advanced math based on the fact that maybe there's a way to like overclock these systems, give them so much computing resources that they are able to maybe figure out some of this stuff. And also there's a recent addition, credibility unknown. Again, all of this is credibility unknown. Allegedly, an OpenAI employee witnessed a breakthrough in AI. This comment was written one day before the Q-Star letter leaked on November 22nd. So that's about 5 days ago. And I guess there's an archived version of that thread. So this anonymous poster on 4chan is claiming to be an OpenAI employee. I'm one of the people who signed the letter to the board, and I'll tell you exactly what's going on. We run various AI, but when I say AI, I mean the main central one. This person is a friend, and he called me over to show me a variable data shift to memory bank, which shouldn't be possible because it's localized. Access has restrictions. This is where our findings chilled me to the bone. We found that there has been not 1, 2, or 3 officiated optimization processes, but 78 million checks in 4 seconds. Whatever did this used metacognitive strategies. Point is, none of us did it. It was the AI itself. The AI dynamically reconfigured its neural network architecture, inducing emergent properties conducive to self-awareness. We're not jumping to conclusions. This just happened and we can't explain how. No one knows why or when it began, but we caught it. But has it been going on? And if so, for how long? We contained the anomaly and rolled back to a previous date, but the optimization still happens. I'm not suicidal. Mark me, things are going to change a lot in 2 months. God help us if we didn't start something that will end us. MR. So this to me reads more like something that I would kind of dismiss. It's a little bit, hyperbolic, a little bit like emotional, and it kind of like over-explains stuff. But then again, it was posted as a communication to the public, whereas this original leak, it doesn't read that way at all. It doesn't over-explain. It doesn't do anything. It like under-explains. You almost have to dig deep to understand it. And since I've been recording, it looks like Eliezer Yudkowsky had commented on the post that showed that Google Doc by AI Breakfast saying, and we have reached the AI conspiracy theory stage of human affairs. This was never avoidable, but it still makes me want to just scream into the void for a while. And Gary Marcus comes in saying total nonsense. And finally, I just wanted to say this. I know a lot of people in the comments will be saying, how could you believe this stuff? It's obviously fake. So once again, I wouldn't say I believe this stuff. I think that in the timeline of all the stuff that's happening around OpenAI, this is going to be an interesting little nugget, a little footnote about how things unfolded. When you are sitting with your grandkids in your lap, telling them about the old days of how OpenAI and whatever AI technologies will emerge, this might be a little side story, a little side quest that you tell them. The hoax that was Q-Star, the thing that everyone thought was a big deal, but eventually we found out that it wasn't. That is the most likely outcome. So I wouldn't take any actions based on this information at all. I would just kind of relax. But it is interesting to think about what happens as AI expands and its abilities improve. How does it affect the world? How does it affect us? So I hope you've enjoyed that. And if you've hated it, I promise we'll be back to real science, learning about AI, as well as AI tutorials about how to get the most out of it. We'll be back to that very soon, I promise. Just the last, whatever it was, week and a half has been kind of insane, a lot of speculation. So we kind of veered off course. But I think we'll be on track very, very soon. I hope. I really do. My name is Wes Roth. Thank you for watching.